So before I do the introduction, I do not listen to myself too often because I don't really like the sound of my own voice. But I did catch some of it. And I'm really worried that I'm beginning to sound a bit like Keith Floyd.
In what way?
Well, there's sort of a bit nasal and sort of long, drawn-out words. Do I sound like I'm drinking while I'm doing these podcasts? Oh dear, I really hope that's not the case.
I can't say I thought that when I listened to you.
This is Clare Varga, VP of Content and Director of Beauty at WGSN. And even though it might not be clear from the intro you just heard, today we're actually here to talk about the beauty trends we predict will dominate by 2027. And in particular, we're going to look at one very interesting group of consumers that we call the Energizers. The Energizers are playful and optimistic. They use humour and imagination to cope with boredom and stress. And in a world where beauty can sometimes be perceived as maybe a little bit shallow, they view it as a positive space for both creativity and sparking joy. I'm Carla Buzasi, CEO of WGSN, the world's leading trend forecasting company. You're listening to Lives of Tomorrow, the WGSN podcast about how we'll live our lives in the future. Claire, a big welcome to the podcast. Let's start with you introducing yourself to our listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I did realise this is actually probably the only way I can get to spend quality time with you at the moment. So I was very glad to be invited. But yes, I am a VP of Content, and within that I am also the Director of Beauty at WGSN. And that means I lead the beauty team, and we're very focused on how the emotional, cultural and behaviour shifts are shaping beauty products and services, what people want, but also why. And for our clients, we're then able to translate that into the future products, the experiences, the strategies that are, relevant, that are timely, but more importantly, that people are going to want to buy. So that's the core of what I do. And that's from, the macro trends, the big overarching stuff, right down to the mad things happening on TikTok as well.
Okay, so we're here today to talk about the key personas that we're forecasting for 2027. And we know how important it is to be ahead of evolving values and the expectations of beauty consumers. But how does the work, or can you explain, because I do know the answer to this, but can you explain to the listeners, how does the work you do into the personas help inform the products and services that will be required by those consumers?
Absolutely. So our personas, our WGN personas, they're really a read. They give brands a read on the emotional landscape. That's how I think of them. And it means, you can decode how people are feeling, why, it's not just about where they are or who they are. It's about sort of how they feel. And we can then turn that emotional sort of insight into, a strategic foresight. And it's going to guide everything from product production to how they position their brands as well. It's really about anticipating desire and about then being able to shape your products and the experiences accordingly. And that's the sort of core thing that we do within our personas. And they're very psychographic as well. There are elements in there that are demographic. We obviously talk about the different cohorts and how they're looking at, but this is really, this is how people are behaving. This is their feeling. This is their why, and this is what they're going to want.
Yeah. Okay. So you and the team, many, many months of work go into this forecast. Can you give the listeners just a top-line overview of the four personas? Now, I often present our future consumer personas, and to do it justice takes well over an hour. And I'm going to give you a few minutes, so see how you go with that.
I can do this. Put the countdown clock on. It's good. So our four personas that we have first up the privacy keepers. They're the digital minimalists. They want meaningfulness, quiet luxury. You've got the conventionalists next. Love tradition, natural simplicity, find newness by looking back. That's how I like to think of them. Then got the new independents. They're the sort of beauty's radical realists. They are the beauty activists, or generally consumer activists. They want truth, they want inclusivity, they want cultural integrity. And then finally, we've got the Energizers, who we're going to speak more about. They're the joy chasers. They're the ones that, believe beauty should be fun. They see play almost as a wellness pillar. It's part of how they feel. And they want anything that's, deliciously sensorial, emotionally uplifting. How's that?
Okay.
How did I do?
I think you did very well. Very impressed. So can you tell everybody a bit more about the Energisers? This is, for anyone listening to this today, this should give you a really positive view of how the world is going to change and how consumers are going to adapt.
Yeah, the Energisers, and you'll be pleased to know, I think it's everybody's favourite persona. When I'm talking to brands, when I'm talking to clients, it's the one they resonate with. I think there's a bit of Energizer in all of us.
Yeah.
This is about, beauty, the sheer pleasure of beauty. I think, anybody who interacts with beauty products, the joy of a lipstick, that simple pleasure that we have, there's a lot of reclaiming that sort of original sort of happy part of beauty, not the, as you mentioned earlier on, that sort of slightly toxic divisive side of it. But it's not frivolous. This is about coping. This is about dealing with stress. It's about just, helping navigate a very difficult world at the moment. And, they're actively in choosing play with purpose. They're looking for products that, yes, are going to function. They've still got to perform. But if that product is going to spark a bit of joy, and bring that sort of happiness, and I know we've covered glimmers so much in your podcast, so everybody listening is going to be familiar with them. But to me, the Energizers are all about the glimmers.
Yeah.
They're actively searching that, so they will, uplift them as well.
Now, in the forecast, it talks about things like jelly cleansers and glitter hairsprays, edible skincare, these fun and innovative products. How do you see them shaping the industry as a whole?
I mean, it's really fascinating. And I think, you talk about jelly cleansers and glitter hairsprays, and it can seem quite light. It can seem quite frivolous, But these products are not just playful. They are really powerful. These are really powerful products. And it is really tapping into that glimmers, that need for those small moments of joy that really elevate, whether it's the everyday or it's something special. But, their products are just that added extra. Now, we've called them beauty funtilities. So that's products that are both, functional, high performing, but they're also fun and quirky. But we also have beautilities as well, which are probably a little bit more serious. So they're something that might be a keepsake packaging. It could be very beautiful. And it's something that you will get joy out of over a long time. And what we're seeing, in terms of how this is innovating things ongoing, in a crowded market, that extra is possibly the differentiator between you and another brand.
I think it's exactly right. It's the and, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not just the thing that you have necessarily bought it for. It's the and. And if that means that you have a more positive association with the product or the brand, or that you then keep on coming back. I was thinking about this, the diptyque candles, huge investment, not certainly in my world, not one you necessarily buy for yourself. But I had one and I'd saved and saved and saved it, as you often do. And then you think, well, if I don't burn it soon, I'm never actually going to get any fragrance left out of this because I've had it for so long. And now it's finished and it just sits there with my makeup brushes. And I feel happy every time I see it. Every time I see it.
And it's interesting that you highlight a candle as well, because fragrance is one of the big add-on aspects that's really driving purchase. So this, you talked about what's driving innovation or how is this influencing. So alongside textures, the jellies, the whipped things that you mentioned, scent and flavour are becoming really, really important in beauty. Which is really exciting for us and the food and drink team, where there's a lot of cribbing and sharing going on. But as you said, we're going from things like edible serums to, really gourmand foodie scents coming through in all sorts of products. You've got like dopamine cleansing. So you've got like all these foamy textures, jelly textures. And it's just making everything feel like a really, really good experience. But then there is that, on top of it, that collectability, that keepsakeness as well.
But there's also that point which comes across in a lot of what you forecast, which is things have also got to do their job. So I bought a dupe fragrance quite a few months ago, and the first spritz, it smells great, but it is gone about 6 seconds later. Now, because of my personality, I cannot bring myself to get rid of this. I'm going to finish that damn perfume if it kills me. But I was using it this morning and there's not much left. And it's just like it wasn't even worth the, I don't know, £14 I spent on it, because it just doesn't last. It doesn't last. It doesn't make me feel good for hours of the day. It makes me feel good for about 14 seconds.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's obviously making you unhappy as well. It is not a glimmer. It is an anti-glimmer, I think. So, yeah, and I think, I think a lot of the times at the moment, investment is a key word here, I think, it's not about, a lot of the times at the moment when, money is tight, people are maybe cutting back on things, but maybe that is a false economy. And, there's something about a product that has longevity that, maybe turns into something else, or just, gives joy over a longer period of time. It's really, really important, and we're seeing just so many more products. But you're right, it can't be one or the other. It has to deliver on both. This is not just about fun over performance.
No.
They're on par.
They really are. And one of our big forecasts for our shopper priorities for next year is all about spaving. And that's the idea that you will spend if it means that you save over amount of time. And we're kind of moving away just from the lowest common denominator, what's the cheapest version of that thing that I can get, to an acknowledgement that sometimes a small investment will be needed. And if people can then see that play out, and this is across all industries, but I think there's a sort of intersection here, which is quite interesting when we think about the beauty market. Just coming back to the Energizers, I think at face value, some people would listen, hear about them and think, okay, this seems a younger generational attitude. It's more a Gen Z, maybe with a little millennial Gen Alpha thrown in. But it isn't that simple, is it? Explain a little bit more. It's more about young at heart rather than actual age number.
Absolutely. We're always talking about kidults, and, we've talked a lot in beauty about age agnostic beauty and designing for the need, not the number. And I think you can very much, apply that to here. The Energizers aren't defined by age. Yes, they do. Some of it does skew quite young, and you've particularly also got your Gen Alphas coming into this as well. But it's actually, Energizers span all ages. And it is actually but more like reclaiming some of that childhood, that childlike joy of beauty products. It is more about that vibe. I think, it's about rejecting serious beauty. It's a pushback against wellness tracking. Or anything around sacrifice as well. I think it's very real. It's very honest. It's about surprise and amusement. So much humor, often quite dark humor as well. The beauty industry is poking fun at itself a lot more than it used to be, which is nice to see. But yeah, I think it's, as I said, I mentioned, people sort of seeing it almost as a new pillar of wellness, that play and fun is this holistic view. If you're feeding yourself well, you're working out, you're doing all these things, but actually you've got to have pleasure as well. You've got to find the fun, and more than ever, we've got to find the fun at the moment as well.
Okay, so on the topic of finding the fun, we're going to try and get to know you a little bit better with a few quick fire questions. There are 5, so we'll rattle through these. You go into the salon, but your hairdresser hasn't shown. Do you come back at a later date or put faith into one of the other hairdressers?
Oh my God, Tasha, the hairdresser, would kill anybody else who touched my hair. If I want to change my hair, she doesn't disagree. She won't do it. So that would never happen. And she would WhatsApp me anyway. So it would never happen.
Okay, morning person or midnight thinker?
Oh, morning person. Horrible when I'm tired. Morning.
Pick a future trend, beauty or otherwise, that you wish had already arrived.
I know I'm supposed to say something huge like curing climate change or finding a cure for cancer, but the thing that popped into my head was I was reading about AI being the thing that's going to translate language barriers between our pets. So the AI that helps me speak to my cat is the thing I'm looking forward to most. What
do you wish your cat would say to you?
Oh, actually, I know what one of my cats would say because he's just dopey and he loves me. It's my other cat, Vera, who has moved into her summer residence, otherwise known as the garage, and we won't see her till October. And I'd probably like to know why. Why?
Now, our listeners may not know, but you used to design football shirts. So what was your favourite club's shirt to work on?
Ah, yes, in my previous life. Yes, my way into wellness was performance sportswear design, believe it or not. So actually, it's probably not a football shirt. I never designed any teams. I'm very proud of the stuff we did at Liverpool, but I think my proudest is the Welsh Rugby Union kit. So I'm more of a rugby girl. My dad nearly put me out of the house for designing the Wales rugby kit as a staunch England supporter, but he was very proud.
Oh, that's very good. Analog forever or fully digital?
Oh, I'm Gen X, so I've had the best of both, but I'd say 99.9% fully digital, probably.
What's the 0.1% analog that's left?
Napping.
Love that. Right, let's go back into the serious topic at hand. So, beauty, it sometimes gets a bit of a bad rap in terms of it's a bit shallow in a world where awful things are taking place. But the Energisers in particular do see this as a really positive space. So how does the beauty industry kind of harness that community and positivity to, I mean, does it matter whether it's seen that way? What are your thoughts?
I do. I actually do think it's really essential to what beauty brands are doing. And actually, I think the ones that are thriving at the moment are doing a lot around community. And I think consumers like the Energisers, but a lot of consumers, they're not just buying into beauty. They're not just consuming. They want to sort of co-create and they want to feel part of it. And I think co-creation gives brands credibility. It gives them so much credibility. And they're the ones that are winning, the ones that are sort of inviting feedback, the ones that are fostering playfulness and really sort of tapping into real life experiences, because then they're able to deliver the right products as well. And I do think, community can actually be a catalyst as well. It can be, again, we talk about beauty being quite frivolous, but community can actually drive a lot of change. And it's about self-expression. It can shape innovation. And it really does create this very much shared emotional space. And even, you look at things like really sort of some of the really fun things, the collectibles, the merch, the key rings and everything that are around at the moment, that's a quite basic form of personalization. And just anything like that makes people feel like part of the brand. It's not just being the audience. And there's a brand, a UK brand called Refi. And as you were talking, I was thinking about them. They have done so much community engagement and customer-led innovation, started very small. They've moved away from influencers. They focus on their super fans.
Okay.
And they, they work with them on exclusive experiences. They do consumer testing, early innovation testing, and just they really leverage the power of that sort of community. The people get limited drops and everything. And I think, I look at that brand and everything they're doing, and that's, how they're using that community to drive innovation. It's not sort of community washing. It's not box ticking. It's really powerful.
Do you think we've got away from that box ticking? Because, the importance of things like transparency and trust is getting more important, and therefore it is harder to get away with box ticking. But do you think that's just a phase we're going through, or do you think that has been acknowledged, that if you want to keep that consumer for any period of time, you've got to be completely honest with them about how things are created, where they come from, what the ingredients are, etc.?
Brands do, and to, use the youth terminology, it's all about the receipts. Consumers want to see the receipts. They want to see the proof behind claims. They want the transparency. I think we've just come off a period within the team where, we were jokingly saying, we can't put the word washing on another topic, whether it was greenwashing, tech washing, Menno washing. It seemed to be that everything, people were just sort of doing that sort of box ticking thing. And I think, consumers are quite cynical now. We call them the skinnicks for a good reason. They want to know what's going on. And I say they want the receipts. It's not enough just to say it works anymore. They want that proof. They want to understand about their ingredients. And I mean, right now, we've just talked a lot about tariffs, obviously, nonstop, and tariff transparency. And some of the stuff that brands have been doing around that, breaking down why they're having to increase prices, giving their community the heads up on when a price will increase to allow them to stock up. So some really good practice around that. Brands like Coco Kind, they hosted this amazing sort of Tariff 101 Zoom call where they went through what it might mean, and they asked their consumers about, what does it feel? Should we put the prices up on all our products, or maybe just one product? Is there one you would like us to keep low? And I think just having those conversations and taking a very open approach, it's a no-brainer, really.
Yeah.
It is a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. I hadn't heard of that example beforehand, so that's really interesting. So a lot of this is a lot about emotion. I think everything we've talked about has touched upon that. How does that intersect with our increasingly digital world? I mean, if I had a penny for every time I said increasingly digital over the last decade, there'd be many of them. But I mean, we are at the cutting edge of it right now. And with the increase of AI, how do you straddle both those worlds? How do you harness the best of the tech while still appealing to human beings and appearing to be human to those human beings?
I think tech makes beauty personal. It makes beauty personalized. And that doesn't, and whether that's something that's an AI shade matching or it's a mood boosting scent, I think that's how, that's what's happening in the beauty industry. So it's whether your skincare or anything is just making it feel personalized. So it might not be bespoke or prescript design, but it's still meeting you where you are. It's fulfilling a need. And I think that personalization is incredibly sticky. It builds stickiness. You want to go back. It's not about function. It's about that feeling of belonging. It's about that feeling that this brand understands me. So, I think there are a lot of smart brands who are sort of co-creating with their consumers and using tech in that way. And, we also do, we all automatically think tech is digital as well. We've talked a lot about dumb tech and dumb treatments and, sort of quite low tech innovations as well and different ways to bring personalization in. So, and as I said, with the merch as well, it's all a different way of just expressing yourself. So to me, they do sit quite happily together. It's maybe not quite so obvious, but I just think anything that allows somebody to personalize their product or their experience of a product is incredibly sticky and a real driver of loyalty.
Okay, let's change things up a little bit. The week that we're recording this, we lost Leonard Lauder, true beauty industry icon, and the man behind the famous lipstick index. So that idea that in tough economic times, lipstick sales go up as consumers turn to small, feel-good luxuries. But there's always a debate around that as to whether it's still relevant. Something is dead. Something with things like the rising interest in glimmers, which we forecast years ago. Those micro moments of joy and comfort. Is that really the case? So what's your take? Lipstick index still important?
Absolutely. And it is not dead. It is not gone. It is just simply evolved, And it's been coming up, even before Leonard Lauder's passing this week, it's been coming up again, and whether the beauty industry has lost its recession-proofness, and, no industry is recession-proof, but I still truly believe that the beauty is as good as it gets when it comes to that. But I think, Leonard Lauder, he recognised that when times are tough, that people crave joy, and beauty will always deliver that in a way that's very accessible to lots of different people. And like I said, yeah, it still holds true, but it has evolved. So people still want those small luxuries, as we were just saying, but they want an and as well, maybe. So they're choosing something that's a little bit more meaningful or multifunctional. And I guess the problem, I don't really have a problem with the lipstick index, but there still seemed to be something in there about saying, or just get yourself something small, a little treat. There was still something limiting about it. There was still a bit of a guilt attached to it almost, which, was always a bit troublesome for me. And I think, when we talk about beautilities and we talk about funtilities, that's giving you that, but without the guilt. It's the joy without the guilt of spending, because you're actually buying something that's meaningful, is doing a job. It might, as we were talking about your candle, it gives you pleasure over a longer period of time. And, for that reason alone, that's why I just do not think that it's going away. It still holds true, and it's about glimmers with purpose, I think, and just providing products that help people feel good as well, but how they function and just taking away that sort of guilt of it as well.
Okay, so let's summarize. Let's you summarize. Your one piece of advice. So you're a CEO of a huge beauty brand. You've heard this. You think the Energizers, that sounds exactly the kind of consumer that we want to be targeting. What's the one thing they should be doing right now?
I think they should have a merch strategy.
Okay.
We always at the moment talk about, always like, what's your wellness strategy? How are you positioning this? Merch strategy, definitely. Look at your product lines, your assortments, and look at the add-ons. Look at your hero products, your icons. Can I turn them into a mini? It's not about newness. Can I do it as a portable keyring? We've seen some amazing stuff. Brands doing little portable versions of keyring versions of scents and things. At the other end of it, resurgence in hairbrushes and combs. Those everyday objects but beautiful versions of them. So just go back and look at some of those everyday things and just how can you elevate that experience? But it's not about reinventing the wheel. What can I do? Look back, bring things back. Is there something I can add scent to? Is there something I can add flavour to? So think of it from that point of view.
Amazing. And finally, are you more anxious or excited about the future right now?
Anxiety? Is that a word? Is that a thing? Can I be excited?
I'm sure we can make it one.
Can we make it one? Yes.
Excited.
Yeah. I think I feel both, like most people. I feel both deeply. As a parent, I worry. The world's very complex. It's very fast. But I also see just extraordinary resilience, creativity, kindness in people, and that will always give me hope. And I think I'm a generally optimistic person. And actually just working in WGSN, the people we work with, the brands we talk about, we're seeing the best of the best, and that makes me believe that things that can be better. And but yeah, I will always choose kindness. I will always choose joy, and I will absolutely always choose a glimmer.
Absolutely always choose a glimmer. I'm definitely there with you on that. Thank you so much to Clare Varga, Vice President of Content and Director of Beauty at WGSN. Today, we've been talking all about the Energizers, but that's only one of the 4 future personas that we forecasted will dominate come 2027. So, if you want to hear more about the 3 others, then please listen to the episode we did in May called Understanding the Future Consumer, Key Personas for 2027. And of course, please check out our other podcast, Create Tomorrow, with my colleague Cassandra Napoli. Thank you for now. I will return with a new episode of Lives of Tomorrow in 14 days. My name's Carla Buzasi. I'm the CEO of WGSN, and I'll see you next time.